3 bone-chilling true Airbnb nightmares that will haunt you forever just when you think it's safe to book that dream getaway. 3 spine-chilling tales of terror emerge from the shadows of Airbnb. These stories, dripping with chilling details, reveal the terrifying truth that can lurk behind charming online listings. Imagine rolling into a picturesque cottage, only to find yourself trapped in a waking nightmare where every creak and groan of the floorboards feels ominously alive. A house that seems cozy can mask dark secrets, and the unsuspecting guests are stepping into a horror film they never auditioned for. There was once a couple, eager to escape their mundane lives. They opened the door to their quaint rental and gasped in delight, or was it dread? A beautiful Victorian adorned with vibrant ivy instantly captivated their hearts. But within hours, they discovered it was a prison of fear, revealing rotating shadows at the corners of their eyes and whispers dancing through the halls that sent them both into a panic. Ghostly cameras hidden in the walls, tracking their every move, left them wondering who was truly watching. The tension in the air was suffocating, each flicker of a light bulb another moment of dread, as their comfort turned to horror. Friends and family were still buzzing with excitement at seeing their vacation photos, unaware of the chilling reality hidden behind each smile. The next tale grips the reader from the beginning, a solo traveler checking into a chic loft that looked picture-perfect online, only for the walls to pulse with something she couldn't quite name. Strange sounds echoed through the night, scratching, muffled voices, and the unsettling feeling that someone, or something, was waiting just beyond her door. When morning came, her nightmares were overwhelming, the reality of a haunting that had seeped into her very bones. Her heart raced as she learned a previous guest had vanished without a trace, their absence masked by the laughter of unsuspecting tourists. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Now, let us dive into the final horror that looms over these Airbnb tales. Picture this, a family on a vacation, excited to explore a new city. When they entered their rental, an enticing aroma of baked goods filled the air. Too good to be true, right? Yet, with every passing hour, reality darkened. What began as enchanting turned terrifying as they discovered that each reappearance of that smell was matched by echoes of frantic laughter, leading them to a hidden trapdoor in the home's basement. Just as they opened it, a horrifying realization washed over them. Whoever baked those treats had no intention of letting them leave. The family recoiled, the air thick with a sinister mix of sweetness and fear. The dimly lit basement yawned below like a mouth waiting to swallow them whole. The laughter, now louder, bounced off the walls. It was chaotic, almost joyous. Yet the very essence of it sent chills racing down their spines. "What are we doing?" whispered Sarah, clutching her young daughter, Lily, tight to her side. She could feel the little girl's heartbeat thumping in her chest, matching her own rising panic. "We need to get out," her husband Jake urged, his voice barely a murmur. He was trying to maintain a brave front, but the tremors in his hands betrayed him. Just as they turned to flee back upstairs, the flickering overhead light buzzed ominously, plunging them into darkness for a heart-stopping moment. When it flickered back to life, the basement felt different. The laughter had morphed into a low, menacing chuckle, echoing unsettlingly close to them. "Hide!" Jake hissed, pulling his family into a shadowy corner. They pressed against the cold, damp wall, their breaths shallow. As they crouched, the sounds grew louder, a cacophony of childish tittering that clawed at the edges of sanity. "What if it's a prank?" Jake whispered, though the doubt clung to him like a shroud. His eyes darted nervously to the trapdoor they had opened. It felt like a portal into another world, one where nightmares lurked just beyond their collective imagination, but as if fate had taken offense to their skepticism, a figure materialized from the darkness. It was a child, wide-eyed, with an unsettling smile that saw too much. The moment he appeared, the laughter stopped, silence sweeping over the basement like a fog creeping in from the sea. "Did you like the cupcakes?" the boy asked innocently, his voice laced with an otherworldly echo. Lily's grip on her mother tightened, her body trembling. "No. We don't want any more," she whimpered, but the boy's eyes glinted with malevolent joy. "I made lots." He leaned closer, the faint smell of baked goods now mingling with something rotten. "You can stay forever." Jake felt the knot in his stomach twist painfully. "We need to go now," he shouted, his voice sharp as he pulled Sarah and Lily toward the stairs. The boy's laughter erupted again, filling the room with a sinister melody as they scrambled up the stairs. As they reached for the doorknob, it felt unnaturally cold, almost as if it were holding them back. They twisted it desperately, but it wouldn't budge. Panic surged within them as the sound of footsteps grew louder behind them. "We're stuck!" Sarah screamed, her nails digging into Jake's arm. The laughter culminated into a shrill crescendo, echoing around them as though the walls themselves were laughing. With a sudden, fierce determination, Jake hurled himself against the door. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. The door burst open, spilling them into the dimly lit living room, panting as they stumbled out. Behind them, the soft sound of footsteps slinked back toward the basement, laughter fading into haunting echoes, but outside, they weren't safe yet. Shadows loomed eerily on the porch as the moonlight revealed their surroundings. Their desire to escape the horror was not the last of it. The house beckoned them back with a shiver of whispers, nagging at the back of their minds. "What if this isn't the end?" Lily murmured, her wide eyes scanning the night. Jake looked at the house, then back at Sarah, the realization dawning on him like a storm cloud. "Maybe," he breathed, his voice trailing off. The sweetest cupcakes might just be the beginning. The night was still young, and as the air thickened with an unnatural stillness, the next chapter in their horror was about to unfold. What awaited them next inside that house? The whispers grew louder, promising that they weren't the first to answer its call. The shadows around the house seemed to pulse, alive and aware. Jake's heart raced, each beat drumming a frantic rhythm against his ribcage. He could feel the weight of the house behind them, almost as if it was breathing down their necks, hungry for their return. "Do you think it can still hear us?" Sarah asked, gripping Lily tighter. Her voice trembled but held an edge of fear that made Jake want to shield them both from whatever darkness hovered over the place. "Let us just go," he urged, scanning the area for any signs of a threat, the night so still it felt like a trap. They walked hurriedly down the path, but with every step away from the house, he felt an inexplicable pull in the pit of his stomach. In the distance, a light flickered, breaking the darkness. It beckoned to them, drawing them toward a small shed at the edge of the property. "What if someone is inside?" "Maybe they can help us," Jake offered, despite the unease churning within him. "Or maybe it's just more of, whatever that was," Sarah replied, her eyes darting between the shed and the ominous house behind them. Yet something primal pushed Jake forward. He took a cautious step toward the light, the flickering matching the uncertainty in his heart. The door creaked open, revealing a cluttered interior, summoning a faint scent of damp wood and something metallic. "Hello?" Jake called, his voice quivering slightly. There was no answer, only silence layered with the distant echoes of laughter that haunted their memories. "Let us look," he said, his voice steadied by the false bravery that comes from fear. As they stepped inside, Lily clung to her mother, her eyes wide with fear, glistening in the dim light. Boxes were stacked haphazardly, and old farming tools lined the walls. But what drew their attention was an old table in the center, draped with a dusty sheet. "What's under that?" Sarah wondered aloud, taking a cautious step closer. "Maybe it's something useful," Jake suggested, a part of him regretting it already. With trembling hands, he lifted the corner of the sheet, revealing a collection of old, cracked dolls. Their glassy eyes seemed to follow them, chilling his bones as they exposed a history of neglect and forgotten innocence. "Oh God, what happened to them?" Sarah whispered, a shiver coursing through her. "They're just old toys," Jake said more to assure himself than her. But as he reached for one, its porcelain skin felt cold and wrong, as if it had been touched by the very chill of death itself. Lily tugged at her mother's arm. "I don't like it, Mama." Then a sudden sound rippled through the air. A child's giggle, sharp and echoing, bounced off the shed walls, wrapping them in a vice of fear. It was unearthly, an invitation hidden within a taunt. They exchanged terrified glances, knowing they had awakened something far worse than what lurked in the basement. Jake's instincts kicked in. They had to leave. Now. He hissed, grabbing his family and yanking them toward the door, yet before they could escape, the shed door slammed shut with a resonating bang. Darkness enveloped them, and the oppressive laughter swelled around them, a crescendo building from all sides. "Let us out!" Sarah shouted, pounding on the door, her voice cracking. But the laughter grew louder, transforming into a chorus of demonic shrieks, twisting their fear into something palpable. "Jake! Do something!" Desperation clawed at his insides. He scrambled for the small window in the corner, attempting to pry it open, but it was stuck fast, like the door, as if the house itself was constraining them. The laughter twisted into a chant, a reckless symphony of voices, and Jake could feel the weight of the room pressing down on them. He turned back to his family, trying to see through the dark, their faces twisted in terror. "Stay close," he commanded, though uncertainty gnawed at him. The air shifted, heavy with anticipation, making the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. But then, as the walls closed tighter, he caught a glimpse of movement behind Lily, a shadow slinking across the wall. What else was watching from the darkness? Just outside in the moonlight, the house loomed ominously over the shed, as if waiting for the moment they would fall into despair. "Who's out there?" Jake shouted, dread pooling in his stomach. Yet the only sound that followed was the laughter, sharper now, taunting them as they stood trapped in their own nightmare. How far would they have to go before the truth of this house revealed itself? The laughter turned into cries of delight, and Jake tightened his grip on Sarah and Lily. "What do they want from us?" Sarah whispered, her breath ragged, like a dagger twisting in his heart. All Jake could do was stare into the deepening shadows, realizing what they had somehow invited in. And what would come for them next? Jake felt the weight of the oppressive darkness closing in around them, thick and suffocating. The laughter continued to echo, warping into something sinister, a cacophony that twisted his stomach. "We can't stay here," he whispered urgently, but even to his own ears, his words sounded weak. Lily's small voice broke the madness. "I'm scared, Daddy." Her little hands clenched tightly around her mother, nails digging into fabric. Jake's heart ached, and he forced himself to maintain a calm front. "Listen to me," he said, looking deep into Sarah's eyes, "we need to find another way out." But before they could figure out what to do, shadows came alive around them, slithering along the walls, their edges sharp and indistinct. "What if they get us first?" Sarah's voice trembled, shadowed by rising panic. "I can't lose you both." Her eyes darted around the room, seeking an escape, but the only thing within sight was that cursed table and the dolls that seemed to leer in delight. The laughter grew louder, drowning out Sarah's words. "Shut up!" Jake screamed into the dark space, fury boiling inside him. But that only made the sound erupt further into chaos, turning into a symphony of grotesque giggles that seemed to mock his fear. He lunged toward the door, slamming his shoulder against it, but it held firm, unyielding. "Help!" he shouted, desperation clouding his mind. Behind him, Sarah was pulling Lily away from the dolls, but instead of retreating, Lily took a step forward, entranced. "Lily, no!" Jake shouted, but time slowed as he watched in horror. The dolls on the shelf trembled, a vibrational quiver that resonated within the shed. One doll, now free from its dust covering, sprang to life, its porcelain face twisted into a smile jagged and unnatural. "Play with us," it whispered, a sound like ice cracking underfoot. "Jake!" Sarah reached out, pulling at her daughter as if it could drag Lily back from whatever dark spell had ensnared her. No, Jake could hardly breathe, his instincts screaming that they needed to escape. Get away from it. But the words felt useless as he glimpsed the other dolls shifting, their expressions morphing into sinister masks, each mouth opening to release haunting whispers. Shadows peeled from the walls, taking terrifying forms that battered at the edges of Jake's sanity. Daddy? Lily's voice was soft, distant, as if she were somewhere else, aligned with the darkness. Jake's heart raced as he reached out for her, fighting the oppressive weight of despair blanketing them. Then came a sudden, bone-chilling breeze, cutting through the stifling air. It blew against them, swirling like angry winds, momentarily muffling the laughter. That's when he noticed something else, the faint sound of a heartbeat, heavy and resonant, thudding like a drum. Listen! He shouted again, gathering Sarah and Lily close. Can you hear it? What is that? Sarah's face went pale, filled with dread. I don't know. But it's coming from that shadow. He pointed toward the corner, where a thick darkness seemed to swell, pulsing rhythmically like the sinister heartbeat. As he moved closer, the space warped, swirling in on itself. Each step weighed like lead, an unseen force tugging at him, urging him to halt. The laughter crescendoed again, a deafening roar, and he realized they were surrounded not just by darkness, but by something alive. The shadows coalesced, twisting into a roiling mass filled with eyes, hundreds of them all staring back, reflecting their horror. Each gaze felt like filth, sticking to his skin. Run! Jake shouted, taking Sarah's hand and yanking her toward the door, the surface of it trembling. He rattled it hard, his heart pounding louder than the chaos behind him. But even as he tried again, a chilling realization crept in, whatever watched them had grown too powerful to escape. Then, a face emerged from the shadows, a smiling visage that bore an uncanny resemblance to Lily. Come play, it called in her voice, each syllable dripping with malice. Jake stumbled back, horror gripping his soul as reality itself twisted before him. Don't listen! He bellowed, terror fueling his every move. But as he shoved against the door one last time, a hush swept through the shed, wrapping him in an icy silence. Playtime is here, the voice chimed sweetly, that echoing heartbeat growing stronger, each thud a countdown to his worst nightmare, the inevitable grip of the darkness reaching for them. Desperation spewed forth in a burst as Jake grunted against the door. All he could think about was getting his family out before the shadows claimed them forever. Just then, the laughter faded into a chilling whisper. It's too late. Was it? What awaited them outside? As he braced for the unknown, time froze, leaving him alone with an insatiable uncertainty. The silence crashed down, heavy and unforgiving. Jake's heart thundered in his chest, a wild animal desperate to escape a cage. We have to go now. He barked, dragging Sarah and Lily toward the door once more. The tremors beneath his fingertips thrummed against the wood, but the shadows held it firm, a dark guardian refusing passage. Please! Jake's voice broke, the urgency swelling within him. He pounded on the door, the sound mingling with the heartbeat that seemed to echo louder with every frantic blow. His mind raced. This couldn't be the end. Not like this. Look! Sarah screamed, pointing as the pulsating darkness morphed, solidifying into a figure, a shapeless silhouette with a charcoal-black texture that made it blend seamlessly with the void. It moved, sliding closer, a predator preparing to feast. Jake shielded Lily behind him, rage flaring up to combat the horror. Whatever you are, you can't have my family. He shouted, voice quaking but defiant. His eyes darted around the shed, searching for anything that could be used as a weapon. The mantelpieces displayed grotesque souvenirs, a rusted blade glinted under the weak light. It was still there, waiting. As Jake lunged for it, the laughter erupted again, twisting into a diabolical symphony that seemed to ripple through the walls. The dolls on the shelf began to sway, their hollow eyes glinting with malevolence. Join us. Play forever. They chanted, each word injecting dread into Jake's veins. No. He roared, tightening his grip around the blade. He turned, focusing fully on the shadow advancing toward them. Get away. The air around them thickened as the entity paused, as if contemplating. Then, a hand emerged from the depths, grotesquely elongated and claw-like, reaching toward Lily. A chill skittered down Jake's spine, surging with adrenaline that he charged, flinging the blade with all his strength. It sliced through the air, embedding into the thick shadow with an audible thud. The entity recoiled, shrieking a sound that gelled the blood in Jake's veins. The laughter transformed, morphing into shrieks of rage and fury, a cacophony that rattled the structure around them. "Now's our chance!" he yelled, grabbing Sarah's wrist and pulling her toward the door, Lily clutched tightly under his other arm. With every step, the shadows seemed to reach out, clawing for them. The door finally buckled under their weight, swinging open with a creak that reverberated through the stillness outside. Jake's breath hitched. The night was quiet, chillingly still, a stark contrast to the swirling chaos they had just fled. The moon bathed the area in an eerie silver glow, illuminating a small path leading away. "Go!" he urged, racing into the night, but even as they stepped out, a chill swept through the air. Jake could feel the lingering presence watching them, its malevolence palpable, soaking into his skin. As they ran, his thoughts were a jumbled mess. Did we escape? Was it really over? Behind them came the sound of cracking wood, a shriek, or was it a laugh? He dared not look back. "Daddy?" Lily's voice trembled, breaking through his daze. He didn't answer, his focus locked ahead, heart racing like a caged animal. "Just hold on. We're almost there." They raced toward the tree line, desperate for the safety of the forest. But the whispers began again, curling around him, a soft, seductive sound. "Come back, we miss you." Jake's resolve hardened, but it was not enough to drown out the haunting echo of that sinister laughter, which followed them like a hound on a hunt. Just as they neared the edge of the woods, he caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of his eye. There, amidst the trees, glimmered more dolls, strung together by branches like puppets, their glassy eyes fixated on his retreating figure. Terror seized him anew. "Don't stop. Keep going," he shouted urgently, but was anything truly safe? Had the darkness truly been left behind? As they plunged deeper into shadowed pathways, a chilling thought gripped him. What if the horror wasn't just in that shed but had followed them into the night, and... As questions filled the void of his racing mind, the shadows stretched just a bit further. The darkness of the woods enveloped them, the trees standing like silent sentinels, their twisted branches reaching eerily toward the pale moonlight. Jake's breath came in ragged gulps, his heart racing as he propelled forward, every instinct urging him to escape the looming presence behind them. "Keep running," he barked, feeling the oppressive weight of the night closing in. The rustling leaves and snapping twigs under their feet amplified the urgency. They could not slow down, not for anything, not even for a moment of doubt. Lily whimpered, her small fingers clutching Jake's shirt. "Daddy, I'm scared." The innocence of her voice sent a fresh wave of guilt crashing over him. Here he was, dragging them both into the unknown, away from the face of real danger, only to run straight into the heart of another set of nightmares. "Just a little further, sweetheart. I promise," he encouraged, though uncertainty gnawed at his insides. The laughter from the shed echoed in his mind, unwelcome and foreign. "What if they're right?" Sarah's voice trembled beside him. "What if we can't escape?" "Stop it!" Jake snapped, though the bark in his voice couldn't mask his own growing dread. The shadows felt like they were alive, creeping closer, hungry for their fear. They plunged deeper into the trees, where the moonlight barely reached. Every glance over his shoulder painted a picture of a twisting, dark figure looming just behind them, but he refused to turn his head. His focus remained forward, his determination as sharp as the blade he dethroned. "Keep your eyes on the path," Jake shouted, desperation to push through fueling him. But as they continued, the gnarled trees grew thicker, their branches appearing like skeletal fingers, tangling and twisting, pulling them into a primal trap, and then a piercing scream froze Jake's blood. It was distant but echoed sharply through the trees, echoing his very fears. It sounded like no, it couldn't be. Did you hear that? Sarah asked, her voice a hollow whisper. Don't stop, Jake murmured, even as doubt crept into his mind. Had they escaped the shadow only to wander into something worse? The silence enveloped them again, heavy and oppressive. Just as they ventured further into the pitch black, Jake felt a sudden shift in the air. A cold wind howled through the branches, sending shivers down his spine and tugging at his clothing like a seeking hand. Look! Lily squealed, pointing ahead. Jake squinted into the darkness. There, illuminated faintly by moonlight, stood a run-down cabin, its windows shattered and door hanging off its hinges. A figure seemed to flicker within the shadows of the cabin, lurking just beyond the threshold, beckoning with a slow, deliberate motion. Should we check it out? Sarah's voice wavered, uncertainty thick in the air. No way, Jake answered instantly, his gut tightening. The shed had been a nightmare, but if this was another plaything of the darkness, they needed to maintain distance. Suddenly, the laughter returned louder and more chaotic, sharp enough to slice through their resolve. The trees inched closer, roots reaching, trying to trip them up, and in that moment, Jake's fears crystallized. Escaping the shed was no guarantee that they had outrun their tormentor, but then something pulled at him from inside, an irresistible urge, a promise of safety, of answers. Who could be inside? Jake, Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. What if no? He shouted, the sound reverberating through the night. The panic surged again, overwhelming him like a wave. He had to keep moving, keep protecting them. They didn't have a choice. Ignoring the cabin, he yanked Sarah forward, but the more they raced away, the louder the laughter grew, echoing around them, drowning out their own fears. It felt like the forest itself was closing in, twisting reality, the very ground beneath their feet shifting. Daddy! Lily gasped, her voice clutching at his heart. Suddenly, the shadows sprang from the ground, curling around their legs like smoke, pulling him back, each tendril a promise of undeniable despair. Jake's breaths came in rapid spurts as he fought against the grip of the darkness, desperation fueling his instincts to break free. But just as he found the strength, he heard the whisper clawing at the edges of his perception again, pulling at him with every heartbeat. Come back, we miss you. In that moment, Jake felt at the echo of something much deeper, a connection he didn't understand, a terrifying realization that the monsters they faced weren't just after his family. As they stumbled through the dense trees, he could feel that familiar feeling gnawing at the edges of his mind. A question loomed larger than the shadows: what if they were being led back to the truth of this nightmare? And as they broke through the thicket and stumbled into a clearing bathed in moonlight, the weight of everything crashed down, leaving them to confront the very heart of their fears. Whatever was watching them from within the old cabin, it wasn't just a remnant of the past that waited patient and hungry. And now, they had no choice but to decide, run or face whatever had pulled them here. Would the dark continue its pursuit, or would the truth reveal itself with the dawning of the new light? Jake's heart pounded in his chest as they stood in the clearing, the cabin looming ahead like a beast ready to pounce. The laughter still echoed around them, rising and falling in a haunting symphony. He could see the flickering shadow inside, and for a moment, it felt as if it was searching for them, hungry for their fear. Daddy, I don't want to go in there, Lily whispered, her voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. She clung tighter to Jake, her small hands almost digging into his skin. He could feel the heat of her fear, and it only fueled the urgency within him. Neither do I, but Jake hesitated, caught between instinct and what he felt he had to do. Answers lay within that decrepit structure, answers to fears that gnawed at him every waking moment. What if it's them? What if they're waiting? Sarah's voice cracked, a raw edge of panic slicing through the night air. It pushed Jake a step back, forcing him to confront the gravity of their situation. The whispers grew louder, wrapping around his ears, thick as fog. Come in, it's safe. That word felt like a cruel joke here, and yet a part of him itched to explore. No, he said, shaking his head. We can't. We need to find another way. Just as he turned to lead them deeper into the woods, something shifted in the shadow of the cabin. A pair of eyes, glowing with an unnatural light, blinked into existence. They seemed to pierce through the darkness, directly into Jake's soul, and he faltered. "Jake!" Sarah gasped as the figure stepped forward, revealing itself an old woman with a twisted, sunken face, her mouth curled into a sinister smile that promised nothing good. The figure raised a hand, beckoning them closer. "Why do you run, my dears? You're already home." Jake's stomach dropped. Home. That word thrummed in his mind like a warning bell. "Daddy!" Lily whimpered, backing away, but the shadows swirled and surged closer, pressing against their backs, squeezing them into a confined space. "We're not going back in there," Jake shouted, willing strength into his legs as he backed them away from the intent gaze of the old woman. He wasn't just running, he was fighting. Fighting for their lives and for the sanity they stood on the edge of losing. The old woman's laughter danced through the air, wrapping around them like ivy, suffocating and sinister. "You can't escape what lives in your heart, dear ones. Let me help you remember." Jake felt a surge of anger mixed with a biting fear. "We're not yours to control," he yelled. But she merely chuckled, the sound echoing into the woods, madness swirling in her eyes. With a flick of her wrist, the very ground under their feet began to writhe, roots rising as if the earth itself was contorting to bind them. "Run!" Jake screamed, adrenaline surging through him as he turned and yanked both Lily and Sarah along. They bolted toward the tree line, hearts hammering as the laughter morphed into a howling wind that chased after them, a chilling reminder of what they were fleeing. Branches whipped at his face, clawing at his clothes, and every step felt like running through syrup. Sweat dripped down his temples, mingling with the fear, but Jake drove them forward. Their escape depended on it. As they tore through the foliage, the cacophony of laughter faded but the shadows remained, stalking them, ghostly hands reaching out. Desperately pushing through, they broke free, finding themselves back on a more open path through the forest. "We can't stop," Jake panted, glancing over his shoulder, half expecting to see the old woman bearing down on them. Then, something snagged his attention ahead, a flicker of light. Not the cabin, not that ominous glow. This was different, a blue light shimmering through the trees, vibrant against the shadows. "What's that?" Sarah whispered, a concoction of hope and fear swirling in her eyes. "I don't know," Jake replied, heart racing, "but we need to find out. It might be a way out." With fleeting seconds, they sprinted toward it, the warm glow inviting, almost magical. But as they approached, he realized with a sickening twist in his gut that they might not be alone. Footsteps echoed behind them, heavy, deliberate, growing closer. "Run!" he shouted again, but a new terror gripped him. What awaited them at that light? What if it was just another illusion? And as they hurtled forward, the woods seemed to shift around them as if the trees were leaning in, eager to witness whatever unimaginable fate awaited them just ahead. Would they find sanctuary or yet another nightmare lurking in the light? The blue light flickered and pulsed like a heartbeat, urging them forward even as the darkness closed in behind. Jake's legs felt like lead, but he pushed harder. He couldn't stop now. "Faster!" he barked, glancing back just in time to see a shadow break through the tree line. It moved with a predatory grace, more fluid than human. Panic surged through his veins, choking him. Who or what was chasing them? Lily's little hand squeezed his tightly, her soft whimpers cutting through the chaos in his mind. "Don't look back. Keep running," he shouted. His heart was racing, dread mixed with urgency. As the light grew brighter, it illuminated a clearing ahead, revealing an ancient stone circle, worn smooth by time. Intricate carvings spiraled around the stones, whispering secrets Jake couldn't understand. "Jake, what if it's a trap?" Sarah's voice wavered, mirroring his own doubts. "We don't have a choice. We have to trust it." He grabbed Lily and pulled her along, his mind racing for a solution. They were close now, closer than he'd ever dared hope, yet the footsteps thudded ever closer, resounding in the shadows like a drumbeat heralding the end. With each step, dread pooled in Jake's stomach. What were they running towards? Or away from? As they reached the circle, the blue light enveloped them, bathing the stone in an ethereal glow. It felt warm, almost alive, the first tantalizing hint of safety in a night filled with terror. "Step inside," Jake urged, glancing back once more. The shadowy figure loomed just out of reach, its malevolent eyes glinting like shards of broken glass. They dashed into the center of the circle, holding their breaths as the air thickened, tension transforming the vibrant glow into a suffocating mist. It felt wrong, twisted in a way that sent a chill racing down their spines. Suddenly, the light flickered and dulled. The shadow paused outside the stones, hesitating. Then the old woman's laughter rang out, echoing like a cruel melody. "You think you're safe? This is nowhere, just another layer of the game." The flickering light dimmed further, and fear gripped Jake's heart. "We're trapped," he gasped, looking around frantically. The carvings seemed to undulate, teasing him, drawing him into their ancient rhythm. Lily clung to him, eyes wide. "Daddy, I'm scared." "Me too, sweetie, but we'll figure this out." He glanced at Sarah, whose face was pale, a grim realization dawning upon them. "What do we do now?" Then, the ground trembled beneath them. The stones vibrated with a deep, resonating moan, and Jake could feel the air thickening, pressing in against their chests. "Do we fight it?" Sarah's voice quaked. "What if it wants us to?" Before she could finish, a deafening roar broke out, the shadow behind them lunged forward, and the stones sparked with energy. The ancient symbols flared bright, illuminating the forest around them with a blinding light, drowning out the darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. "Hold on!" Jake shouted, gripping Lily and Sarah tightly as the ground began to split, a chasm forming in the earth between them and the shadowy figure. The old woman emerged from the edge of the darkness, shrieking in fury. "You can't run from your past. It will find you." In that instant, Jake caught a glimpse of something horrifying behind her, a flicker of familiar faces within the shadows, the lost, the forgotten, their cries echoing among the branches. His breath caught in his throat. How could this be? With a blinding flash, the world around them faded to white, and then all went dark for a heartbeat of realization. When the light returned, they were standing alone in the clearing, the cabin lost to the night's depths. "Did we win?" Lily whispered, fear still lacing her words, but the silence that followed answered with a resounding no. Something waited for them, lurking just beyond the veil. It wasn't over yet. Jake's heart raced as he looked to his left, where he sensed another presence. Whispers echoed around them again, creeping back into his mind as the shadows seemed to bend, coiling around their feet. What had they awakened? "Let us go," he whispered, dread pooling in his stomach. He could feel their fears building again, tightening against the unseen. But as he turned to go, he couldn't shake the feeling that a watchful gaze had never truly left them, and behind them. The shadows rippled, breathing a siren-esque call. "Keep running, but your past is waiting." Could they outrun it, or was it already too late? Jake turned, instinct driving him to lead the way into the thickening woods as the weight of the shadow pressed against his back. Every instinct screamed at him to flee, but the uncertainty plagued him. The dread coil tightened, choking him with uncertainty. What were they running from? What had they become part of? Lily's small hand felt impossibly fragile in his own. He could feel her trembling, the little girl overwhelmed by the pounding heart of fear. "Daddy, why are we running?" The innocence in her voice cut through him, a painful reminder of what they were trying to protect. "Just trust me, honey. I promise we'll be okay," he replied, the lie tasting bitter on his tongue. He pushed forward, branches whipped at their faces, nature clawing at them like the shadow behind that. A low growl echoed through the trees around them, deep and guttural. Jake's throat constricted. It sounded hungry and close. "Don't look back," he urged again, even as the sound gnawed at his thoughts. "Keep going." They veered off the path, plunging deeper into the woods, following the flickering remnants of that cursed blue light, now more a memory than reality. "This way." Sarah shouted, pointing toward a narrow ravine that looked like it could be a way out. He hesitated. What if it leads us into a trap? It's better than standing still. We have to try. Exhaling sharply, he nodded. They scrambled down into the ravine. The steep descent took every ounce of will, their hearts pounding in sync with the encroaching darkness. As they landed heavily at the bottom, Jake took a moment to catch his breath, surveying the narrow path before them. Stones glinted faintly underfoot, remnants of the carvings they had escaped. "This feels wrong," Sarah murmured, glancing back up the slope. "We should be gone somewhere else." Just as she spoke, a chilling wind swept through the ravine, whispering their fears into their ears. Flashes of their past, their secrets, their failures sliced through his mind like shards of ice. Every choice echoed, each mistake laid bare in the dim light. "Focus, everyone." Jake's voice boomed, cutting through the whispers. "This isn't over. We need to stay together and keep moving." But the longer they lingered, the higher the rising panic spiraled. Shadows flickered in the corners of his vision. The air was thick with frost now, tightening against them as if nature itself was warning them. Up ahead. Lily pointed, her childish optimism radiating even through the tension. Before them, the ravine opened into a wide expanse, an abandoned town, shrouded in mist. The structures loomed like ghostly sentinels, and Jake's gut twisted at the sight. Is that where we are?" Sarah looked pale, eyes wide with recognition. "I've seen this place on those ghost hunting shows." "Great," Jake murmured, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Just what we need." He nudged them forward, instinct pulling him deeper into the fog. They needed answers. But the moment they crossed the threshold into the town, an electric chill slid down his spine, clinging like ice. A familiar laugh echoed faintly, like the resonance of forgotten memories. "Welcome back," it seemed to whisper through the wind. "Who's there?" Jake shouted, his voice rattling the stillness. Lily tightened her grip on his hand, a tremor bouncing through her tiny frame. "Daddy, I don't like it here." "Me neither," Jake admitted, eyes darting around. And then silence. The air felt heavy, alive with something unseen. Shapes moved in their periphery, flickers of shadow darting just out of sight, mere glimpses of figures from the past, all tied to his reckoning. "Look out!" Sarah screamed as a shadow lunged forward. The familiar shape of the old woman materialized, rage and twisted pleasure mixing in her gaze. "Did you think you could escape? Your past is hungry and it wants you back." Time froze as Jake stepped back, the shadows swirling around him like a dark storm intent on pulling them in. Could they fight this? Was there any way out? In the depths of the encroaching night, a truth loomed, one that felt painfully close. And then, the ground beneath them trembled, cracking open as whispers wrapped around them like vines. "Are you ready to meet your fate?" The darkness laughed, and Jake realized in horror they were descending into something far darker than he could have ever imagined. But was there any choice left but to face it? Ahead, a flicker of light beckoned, a glimmer that promised answers. But at what price? As he took a hesitant step forward, he felt the shadows swell behind him, hungry for the past. What awaited them in the heart of that light? Would it be freedom or doom? Jake stood at the entrance to the abandoned town, the weight of the shadows pressing in around him. Every flicker of movement sent chills racing up his spine. The laughter of the old woman echoed through the empty streets, a haunting reminder of their impending confrontation. "This is it," he whispered to Sarah and Lily, trying to steady the quiver in his voice. "We have to face what we fear." With one deep breath, he stepped into the darkness, determination carving a path through the fear boiling in his gut. The town swallowed them whole, each step a reality check. Closed windows and rotting doors told tales of lives once lived, joys lost to the shadows creeping in. "Stay close," Jake urged, clutching Lily's hand tight while he scanned the petrified surroundings. Sarah kept a protective arm around Lily, her eyes darting nervously, reflecting the encroaching dread. Suddenly, a chilling wind gusted past them, and the shadows danced, merging into grotesque figures that seemed to whisper his name. Jake, come back, their voices intertwined, echoing familiar regrets, guilt-laden memories clawing at the edges of his resolve. Don't listen. He barked, forcing himself to shake off the doubt that threatened to pull him under. We're stronger than this. A glimmer of light flickered down a narrow alleyway. There was something almost hopeful about it. Look. Jake pointed. We need to get to that light. The trio dashed toward it, breathlessly pushing through the eerie shadows thrumming around them. As they reached the mouth of the alley, the warmth of the light washed over them, illuminating what appeared to be a clearing. The whispers dulled into a hushed silence, tension swirling heavily in the air. In the center stood an altar made of intricately carved stones, glowing in soft blues and whites that fought against the darkness. It felt alive, pulsing in rhythm with their hearts. What is this place? Sarah breathed, her eyes wide with awe and fear. I think it's the source, Jake replied, cautious yet drawn in by the allure of answers. But as he spoke, the shadows behind him began to swirl violently, convulsing, as if the darkness itself was agitated by their discovery. The air grew thick, charged with energy, sending tremors of electricity down his spine. This is not good, Jake muttered. His instincts screamed that this was a trap. But with nowhere left to run, the decision was made for them. They had to confront whatever dark force awaited them. Then the old woman appeared again, emerging from the shadows that clung to the alley. Her eyes glinted dangerously like shards of obsidian, and with a flick of her wrist, the darkness roared. You think you can escape the past? This is where it ends. Make it end. Jake shouted, eyes narrowing as he stepped forward, his heart pounding in sync with the thundering bass of the darkness. The altar began to glow brighter, and a resonant hum filled the air, matching the heartbeat of the shadows. It was inviting yet threatening. Step forward, the woman's laughter echoed, embrace it. Let it in. No. Jake growled, defiance igniting within him. They didn't have to surrender to their fears. We choose our fate. With that, he felt the pulse of light tower above the darkness, a flicker in the storm consuming him. Lily and Sarah stepped forward, bolstered by his conviction. Together. They whispered as their hands interlocked. United, they faced the ominous force, arms raised as if to claim the light for themselves. In unison, they channeled their strength, knowing they were more than the shadows wanted them to believe. We are not afraid. They shouted, their voices intertwining and breaking through the fear like a flood. The shadows wavered, twisting under the fervor of their unyielding resolve. The light erupted, enveloping them, dissolving the tendrils of darkness, devouring their hope. No. The old woman screeched, caught in its radiance. This isn't over. Watch us. Jake roared. With one final surge of strength, the pulsing aura burst forth, cascading like a tide that swept the shadows away. The laughter shattered, drowning in a chorus of radiant light, the town dissolving around them. The weight lifted, leaving nothing but vast stillness where fear once swirled, heart pounding. Jake stood in the clearing, breathlessly alive in the aftermath. The regret, the fear, the shadows, they were gone, banished into the void. A new dawn glimmered on the horizon. Did we really do it? Lily's small voice broke the silence, her innocent eyes wide with disbelief and wonder. I think so, Jake replied, a grin breaking through the weight of his heart. We faced them, together. That's what matters. Sarah wrapped her arms around both of them, pulling them close. We're safe now, sweetheart. For real this time. Jake held them tightly, though a small part of him still wondered if the darkness would return. But today, they had conquered, and that was enough for now. They turned, ready to embrace whatever awaited them outside the shadows, a future ripe with possibility, free from the grips of the past. As they walked toward the light spilling over the horizon, Jake knew one thing for certain: they would always choose to face the dark together, no matter how many shadows lurked in their rear view. They stepped into the sunlight, hearts rising with hope. It was over. For now, and as the laughter of the past faded into the light, a single voice echoed, a warning whisper lingering in the air, "You must always remember, but they wouldn't let the shadows have any power over them again." In the end, they had forged their own path out of despair and into the new dawn. And speaking of forging connections, if you love this wild ride, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on what's coming next. Smash that like button to keep our community growing, and I want to hear from all of you in the comments. What are your thoughts, your theories, your reactions? This is the moment to show your support. And don't wait even one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. See you in the next chapter.